Next, we will welcome the East Lansing City Clerk, Marie Wicks.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Marie Wicks, and I currently serve as the interim city clerk for the city of East Lansing, hence I am wearing my Spartan plaid. I'm here today to speak enthusiastically in support of House Bills 4127 through 4130, banning firearms in polling locations, the vicinity of drop boxes and centers where ballots are being processed, and further penalizing harassment of election officials. I have been involved in elections for over a dozen years as a past East Lansing City Clerk, Bureau of Elections Specialist, satellite voting inspector, and for the recent 7 years of my semi-retirement, 7 elections, as a precinct chair, also for the city of East Lansing. And of course, this has come full circle with my recent appointment as interim city clerk. I would like to share with this committee some things about my varied experiences that lead me to voice support for these bills today. Since 2011, I have provided training to hundreds of election inspectors and precinct chairs, primarily for the city of East Lansing. I can tell you that almost without fail, the question of open carry arises at some point during my presentations. I absolutely dread this question when it comes up. I dread it because I have neither a definitive nor a comforting response. What I always advise is that anyone feeling threatened by the presence of a weapon in a polling location should immediately call 911 so at the very least, law enforcement can ascertain that nothing is amiss. As a precinct chair myself, I do think about the fact that absent any prohibition to the contrary, a credentialed challenger could sit closely behind me observing the voting process with a weapon in their hands or at their side, and it leaves me more angry and frustrated than anything. Additionally, a poll watcher who is not required to be credentialed or affiliated with any group may do the same thing from the designated public area. As Secretary Benson, Clerk Mary Clark, and Clerk Byram have pointed out over the past few weeks, clerks and election workers are so difficult to attract and retain and deserve every protection from intimidation that can be afforded them. Of course, so do the voters. I began my interim tenure 1 week prior to the mass shooting on MSU's campus. Like so many here in the legislature, I am struggling to process what happened and how to move forward from this horrific event. With at least 5 off-campus precincts with heavy student presence, I cannot fathom how triggering for them a weapon would be in a polling location, and quite possibly for many others, as well as including newly naturalized citizens, people who've been incarcerated and served their time, or past victims of gun violence. This point cannot be overstated. This discussion around voters and election officials' protection from threats, harassment, and intimidation has been going on for quite some time now. In fact, in 2020, my retired police officer husband and 3 of his cohorts were hired by Watertown Township to provide security for the November general election because there had been an open carry incident during the primary and staff and inspectors were scared to work. I would note that the county had previously declined to provide any kind of protection. In closing, I support this legislation in substance for the reasons listed above. I also support it for a practical reason that I share by way of example. A former East Lansing city attorney opined that even when elections are held in churches or schools, they are no longer gun-free zones by virtue of the use. A later attorney has provided the opposite opinion. So for the sake of uniformity, a state statute would eliminate the issue and preempt confusion wrought by a patchwork of city and township attorney opinions across the state. So much progress has been made to enhance ballot access, particularly by the passage of citizen-initiated ballot proposals 2018-3 and 22-2. Preventing intimidation effectively is eliminating a barrier to voting. So let's keep the momentum moving forward by favorably moving on this bill package. Thank you very much for your time, and I would answer any questions you might have.
I have a question that was kind of spurred by some of the opposition I've received in the past several days. What would you say to the argument that, if people aren't allowed to bring their guns to the polling places, you're in effect disenfranchising them?
It doesn't require a gun to vote. I just cannot abide that conversation. That to me is not an effective barrier. That's the best answer that I have.
That's a good answer.
Thank you.
Representative Wigala.
Yeah. So my question is, in your experience at polling locations, how often does 100 feet actually extend beyond the parking lot, if at all?
I can think of one location in East Lansing. As you know, we have to be located in churches or schools. East Lansing currently does not. The schools have not invited us. But so our churches are located in residential areas. So sometimes that will be, I think, in one location, someone's front yard. But generally not a huge issue.
I do want to note that there is an exemption for people in their residences. I believe a yard would be included with that, although I would have to double check.
I was here really just to share my perspective as a clerk, a poll worker, and a trainer. Thank you very much for your time.